Welcome back to the Irish Mags Show, episode 51. Nearly as old as me, lads. I'm Paul, and seeing as it's the international break, I'm joined by the Mick McCarthy to your Roy Keane. It is Alan and Chris Show, the dream team reunited. Said no one ever.
How's it going, Paul? How are you? Chris Show, welcome back.
Welcome back, Chris Show.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. I was just over in Newcastle just trying to sort Miggy Almiron's exit in January. So it's all confirmed. All done. So
you're clearly doing
an exclusive straight off the bat.
Clearly doing the power of
no more barbecues.
Yeah. Nice to see you guys.
Excellent. Well, on this week's show, we're going to be chatting in depth about the Toon Boys in action for their respective nations during the international break. We will preview our upcoming game against West Ham. Football is coming back. Newcastle are going to be playing a match again soon. It feels like it's been a long time. Especially, lads, we had a bit of momentum and it just got cut by that pesky international break, which kind of didn't really go great for Ireland. But we're going to touch on that in a while. And if there is time at the end for us to once again embarrass Chris Show, we'll have the return of the Irish Magstermind quiz. It's been a while since we've had that too.
Absolutely.
Yes,
can't wait.
Alan,
can't wait.
He's going to regret coming back this week, and we're going to make sure of it. He doesn't even know what he's Googling. Right, let's dive straight into it. We're going to do a little spotlight on the Newcastle players who were in action over the international break. From my count, lads, and you can keep me honest, I think we had 6 players who were all featuring for their respective nations in various competitions. And we're going to start with you, Alan, because we're going to head north up to Scandinavia, where someday maybe we'll talk about Victor Gyökeres playing for Newcastle, but that might be a pipe dream in a future.
Think so.
But Alexander Isak had a pretty decent international break by all accounts. And a little bit of a roller coaster of things that happened across one or two of those games as well.
So Alex made it 5 goals and 5 goals and assists in 5 games for Sweden. The less said about his game against Azerbaijan, the better, I think, with a missed penalty, an offside goal that was about 4 yards onside that somehow VAR ruled out. But yeah, he's looking like he's back to his best. He looks fit. He looks firing. It's exactly what we want to see coming back. And he does like a goal against West Ham too, so hopefully that's something that we see happening this weekend again. So all looks good for him.
I thought that was Callum Wilson who likes a goal against West Ham. Everybody likes a goal against West Ham. West Ham are terrible.
Yeah. Famous last words, isn't it?
We'll see indeed. That's 2 penalties Isak has missed this season, Alan, correct?
Yes, 2 in a row. His last 2 he's missed.
So let me pose a hypothetical scenario to you, Alan Williamson. We're playing West Ham. Anthony Gordon breaks through into the box. A clumsy West Ham defender, probably like Soufal or Max Kilman, completely takes him out of it. Penalty to Newcastle. Isak has just missed one for Sweden. He missed one a little while back for Newcastle. Who's taking it?
Alexander Isak.
Wow. Chris Shaw, would you have Isak on it? Chris Shaw shook his head there. He's not.
Yeah, I'm thinking. I'd like Bruno to take the penalties.
Bruno.
Do you not remember his first one? His first one nearly ended in my backyard.
I know, but I think with being the captain and everything else, and I like the way he strikes the ball with his whole body. You know the way he strikes the ball with his whole body. I'd like to see him start taking a couple of penalties, taking a bit of responsibility on. But yeah, look at again. This is just a controversial. I've decided to be all controversial this evening. All controversial,
and we're all very surprised by that, Chris Shaw.
Shock horror.
If I was having to pick, if the question was like, I would fully back Isak. I'd still back him because you need your striker to get back scoring penalties. But if there was to be another one, I couldn't not pick Fabian Schär because that man he just kicks the ball wonderfully, and it might end up in your back garden, Alan. But that's probably because it would go through the net, rip a hole in it, cross the Irish Sea, and land in your back garden.
But his penalties are always real. Like he rolls them into the bottom corner.
He does. He's too cool. That's why. I'm so old-fashioned. I just want to, if someone's taking a penalty, I just want to see them absolutely bury it, left, center, middle. Like, doesn't really matter where it goes. Just absolutely boot it. Because I'm sick of these short, soft penalties where the keeper has time to actually have a second thought about it and throw out a hander. Like, anyway, that's my rant over. A decent break for Isak, though. And as we said, it's an interesting thought because the partnership with Victor Gyökeres looks very impressive for Sweden. Now Gyökeres is in unbelievable form. He's probably the form striker in Europe. But it just makes you kind of wonder what would happen if Isak had a second striker playing alongside him. Or maybe Eddie's going to look at it and go, oh, let's do something mad and put Gordon beside Isak. And that allows me to get Joe Linton and Barnes on those wings. It's food for
Isak
thought.
plays behind Gyökeres. I have always, he plays like, he doesn't play behind him, but they play two up front, but Isak drops a hell of a lot deeper.
He's a drifter,
Gyökeres plays as the last man. He plays on the last man's shoulder, but Isak's the one dropping in and creating at the midfield. I've always thought if you get a player up front with Isak, you have a serious player that'll create an awful lot of goals for you and get an awful lot of goals for you.
That sounds like a nice little topic for maybe next week's podcast, to look at tactical things of our own opinions. Excellent. Okay. Over to South America, Krisho, where maybe, you seem to miss this podcast a lot. You seem to be on your travels. Potentially South America was also part of your little route around the world. We had two players playing in South America. We obviously had Bruno playing for Brazil, who are Brazil are a very mixed bag these days compared to the Brazil that we've all kind of known historically. They're not the Brazil they used to be, which is unfortunate for Bruno because he's, looking at it now, Bruno is one of the stars of that team. But they're not the Brazil that they were. And then also your friend Miggy, who you've obviously been counseling and, spending a lot of time with, having deep discussions into the early hours. But he did score for Paraguay, so something positive must be coming out of your chats.
Look, here's the crack, right? Miggy's wife invited me over. I said I can't make it. Obviously, I'm in Newcastle with Paul Mitchell. It's a hell. It's a hell. Fair. I don't know what to do,
fair.
Right?
It's fair,
But look,
you wouldn't wish it on anyone.
No, Miggy's been playing well, right? For Paraguay, he's not really getting a look in at Newcastle. Thank you, Jesus, for that. And essentially, he's just he's upped his market price from. I can't believe the $18 million we turned down, supposedly. I don't believe that. Someone said it was £14 million. I don't believe that. We would have taken it. I think Eddie didn't really want to let him go because he's a great character. Oh, give me a break. Sick of hearing this great character stuff. But he scored a goal. He's done very well in the last couple of Paraguay matches as well. So fair play to him. Honestly, fair play to him. But again, let's just enjoy talking about him, because we won't be talking about him in our maybe the third podcast of January, because he'll be gone. With Bruno again, I wish Brazil. The reason why Brazil aren't as good a team anymore is because they kicked the head off each other in training, and I'm just glad that Bruno didn't get attacked during Brazil training again and get his glass ankles kicked in. But the one thing that came out of that for me by looking through it is that Pep Guardiola seems to be sneaking in with his sneaky comments about how great Bruno is, and he keeps getting questioned about Man City, and isn't it great to have a great coach like Pep Guardiola, complimenting you and stuff. And I'm just like, yeah, I don't like the sound of this at all. Now, Al, I don't know whether you called this or not, or maybe we did. I think we did discuss it. That look, at Rodri's not going to come back the same player, and he's also going to come back a lot longer than people think. It's going to take a lot longer. They need something. And Man City are ruthless. If they need something, they'll go and get it. And I think this is just the start of the little bit of foreplay before they tickle us about Bruno. Not in January, I don't think, because I think he'll stay. But maybe, does anyone really see it? I mean, I'm sorry to pose it like this, but does anyone really see Bruno signing for Man City?
Yeah, I do. We already have a ready-made replacement in Tonali. It's exactly where he slots into. And then you have money to go out and spend on another creative midfielder. It would not be the end of the world. Obviously, Bruno is unbelievable. Don't get me wrong, but if it did happen, at least we have the replacement in Tonali there. Obviously, I do not wish Bruno leaves. I want him to stay forever. But if it did happen, we have the replacement there. It wouldn't be the end of the world. It's nice to have a £65 million man on the bench.
How much would we take from Man City?
Chris Watt was speaking about this on the True Faith podcast. He was on with Charlotte, and he kind of alluded to a kind of an acceptance within Newcastle that Bruno will eventually go. And Alan, you've always been kind of saying the same thing, but that 100 million figure definitely has been kind of at the top of the minds with it. That if he was to go, they would expect it might not be they will only accept, but I think the expectation was 100 million for Bruno. And look, Man City have it to spend. I'm kind of with you. I'd be very surprised if you went in January, but I think they're going to be looking in January. I think they are going to be needing it. They've got some big games coming up. And as we've seen, they've lost 4 games in a row for the first time. So they have the money. They've not spent a lot. So it does put the fear into you. And meanwhile, the Arsenal lads are still they're coming back to the old Isak conversation, which is more nonsense as well. But
well, is there a release clause in is there a release clause in Bruno's contract?
It expired.
Yes.
It last summer. It was 100 million, but it expired. So.
Yeah, right. Okay.
I think it would be very hard to turn down 100 million, and I think it would be what we're looking at, a 65 million profit. I think we'd have to take it and think about what we could do with that.
I think they'd accept 85, 90. Personally, I think there's a strong possibility. If they came in with 85, 90, I think he's gone.
Yeah. Wow. Okay.
Right. Look. Well, you saw the one share that got sold for 35 million there.
Did you buy that, Krisho?
Yeah. Well, Miggy's wife bought it for me as a kind of going away present, so I was like, thanks.
Nice. Yeah.
She sound like that. Okay, I think we'll park that because we're going to do a transfer show very soon because we're hitting the end of November, lads, and soon it'll only be a month until that winter transfer window. And I suppose to celebrate Christmas, we'll get ourselves down by talking about Bruno potentially leaving. What else would we do here on the Irish Flag Show? Right. On to other topics. Now, the Newcastle fans in the three of us are delighted to see that England had not one, not two, but 3 Newcastle players starting in their last match of the international break. We saw Lewis Hall make his first start after coming on as a sub in the game before. Tino getting his debut as well, and Anthony Gordon, who scored. Unfortunately, we're all Irish.
Yeah.
So that was kind of a bit heartbreaking. Just the way the game went, I suppose, like a really a good first half. When you take a step back and you realize that we're like the 69th ranked team in the world playing against the 4th ranked team in the world, and we really contained them to nothing for the first 45. 6 minutes into the second half, a red card, and then within 6 more minutes, we're 3-0 down. That kind of sums up what it's like being an Irish person and an Irish football fan. For anyone who's not Irish, that's how it is for us.
Yeah.
But we won't.
It's the hope that kills you.
we won't dwell on it too much. We're well used to it. Let's put it that way. It was also 10 years since the Thierry Henry incident a couple of days ago as well. So it's just a lot of words.
I can't believe you brought that back up. Oh my god!
I know. God, we're really bringing down the tone. But focusing on Newcastle, because this is the Irish Mag Show. 3 players in the England team for the first time, drum roll, since 1997. Can any of you guess the 3 players that were in a starting England squad the last time it happened in 1997? Chris, I'll go to you first because I know Alan definitely.
David Batty.
Yep.
Yes.
Warren Barton.
Negative.
Balls. I give it to Al because I feel too much under pressure already.
Alan, set the tone for the quiz later.
Robley and Shearer.
Yeah. Rob Lee, Alan Shearer, and David Batty in 1997. And I think it was against Georgia randomly. Because I'm pretty sure Shearer said it himself on the podcast that he does. So what's that? 1997. That's 27 years, lads. 27 years since 3 Newcastle players in an England team. There was also 0 Manchester United players in the entire squad, which is another lovely little cherry on top. Chris Show, I'm assuming you watched the game.
No, I did watch the game, right? And apart from the fact that we were robbed of 2 penalties in the first half, which could have meant we were 2-0 up because we had England on the rattle. We had Malumbi giving Kane a bit of a wobble in the midfield, throwing him on the ground and stuff, or getting thrown on the ground. We're all over them, but it's just the people that I was watching it with said, if England score, I can't see us equalising. And of course, England scored 5 times. But I found it. They didn't go to VAR for our penalties, which I think every Irish person discussed. And then as soon as, don't get me wrong, England's penalty was penalty, quite clearly, right? But the referee nearly gave it before he tackled him. He couldn't wait to give a penalty, and he couldn't wait to give a red card. Scales needs to have a good look at himself because he shouldn't have got the yellow card in the first half. That was stupid, kicking the ball away. All footballers need to stop doing that. Just leave the ball alone. Don't kick it away. I think we've got. Did Joelinton or somebody else not get our last game? Did somebody not kick the ball away? And they're going to miss a match. They got a 50 yellow card. Was it
Gordon did it a while back. Remember
Gordon got
Sure,
sent
wasn't
off in the last minute. No, Byrne got a yellow card and misses the West Ham game. But Gordon got sent off at the end of last year doing it after we scored, and then about 2 minutes later he gave away a free kick and he got sent off. And everyone was like, "What happened there?" Yeah.
Very
But look,
neat,
the key thing that was being discussed, right, guys, and I think it's a very positive thing for the future, is that if any player thinks about coming and working under Eddie Howe, to go from an uncapped international to a first teamer and a capped England player, and that's all under Eddie Howe under less than a year. I mean, wow. So any England player like Gahey, that picture they put on Twitter, did you see that with the two lads? Tino and then Gahey in the background. That's very clever. That's class act stuff.
It does. It's a great kind of an advertisement for Eddie Howe's coaching. Now, obviously, the players are good players. We signed them. We bought them. They didn't, they weren't coming through the academy or anything. But Lewis Hall is just a clear testament of a bit of time, a bit of coaching, a bit of a plan, a bit of patience. Everyone kind of talks about 3 times last season he was pulled at halftime. He was taken off, and you can just he's a different player now. And I don't know. I can't wait to see what more is to come. If he's literally only starting, he's only just starting to come good. Really, it's only been weeks rather than months. So, interesting times. And he's played well. He's done himself really well, Alan. I suppose in the international break, he's put in some good shifts there.
As painful as this is to say, he was absolutely amazing against us. He was unbelievable. I just couldn't wrap my head around it. And you always do, I had a little sneak onto the Twitter, see what English fans were saying about him, and they were just mystified about having a left-footed left back that would actually progress with the ball. You can see that he used to be a midfielder. He is just so comfortable on the ball. He's just going to keep getting better and better. It's going to be great.
You can see when he gets the ball, he's scanning kind of straight away. A lot of defenders, especially, are head down or kind of panic or delayed reactions or whatever. He's scanning he's already looking up before the ball is even at his feet, or he's already deciding where to go with it. So that's a massive opportunity, really, when you think about Luke Shaw is fairly crocked at this point. Ben Chilwell equally the same. There's left back options are very, very slim. Levi Colwill is playing centre back, so it's a massive opportunity for him to nail that down. And then obviously, again, now it became a bit of a free for all. England scored 5 goals. The doors just unlocked. But Gordon had a nice little finish, even though, again, it was handed to them on a plate, a defensive mix-up. But he still had to make the finish, and he did it well, I thought.
It was a nice finish, to be fair to him. Took it well. Was again poor defending, but come here, that's Ireland.
That's Ireland. We won't read too much into it. I think there is some positives to take from the overall kind of Ireland. Beating Finland was good, even though I think we didn't really deserve it. They hit the post a couple of times. They missed a penalty, but we'll take it. And then, 45 minutes against England was good, but after that, that was it.
Who's the guy who scored the 5th goal? This guy that I've never heard of, but he plays for Southampton and he's engaged to Roy Keane's daughter.
Harwood Bellis.
Harwood Bellis, yeah. He's a centre back for Southampton. He used to be at Man City in the academy, and he was a loan last season, and then they signed him they had a 20 million fee agreed as part of the loan. Good player, actually, decent.
Yeah.
See what Roy Keane said. They were saying in the commentary about it's good finish. Yeah. How's it going to go play over the Christmas dinner table? And he was like, "Well, it's not done and dusted yet. It's class.
The engagement might be off yet." Typical Roy Keane. I mean, I don't know. Having Roy Keane as your father-in-law is a bit kind of a little bit. You'd be on edge now, going knocking on that door. I can tell you that much. Okay, so a decent showing for the Newcastle players that were playing during the international break all around, really. Unfortunately, we've no Irish players kind of hanging around, but there's a few young lads hanging around. Alex Murphy, maybe Collar. I know Alex Murphy was in the under-21s.
Yeah, he started as they won 3-2 against Sweden.
Yeah, which is good, and Sweden are decent, so maybe more to come.
Festi Ebisele played very, very well, and he did his job defensively, and I think he's really exciting to see going forward, and I've been really impressed with him the last 2 or 3 games. He's really quite impressive. I was just wondering who does he play for? I don't know.
Watford.
He was in Italy. I think he was at Udinese.
Yeah.
And now he's at Watford. You'd hope that he does a bit of a kind of an Ogbene path where he kind of, works his way into a Premier League team or a newly promoted team. So let's see. But I still think he's raw. I still think he needs to work on some of the defensive elements as well. So time will tell. Before we move on, lads, sticking with the international theme, all of the talk has been 3 players playing for England, 3 Newcastle players, obviously the lads making their debuts. It's been a long time since we've had, a multitude of Newcastle players in England teams, especially all at once. I was actually looking back, and I can count, with the help of the internet, 42 English players who played for England while playing for Newcastle. So 42 in the space of about 125 years. It doesn't feel like a lot. And obviously there's some names that predate all of us on the podcast. But I thought we might have a little exercise just to bring us down that memory lane and a bit of nostalgia. We said we'd each pick out our all-time Newcastle United England 11. So basically from those 42 players, we'd each make an 11 out of it, just to kind of have a quick chat about some of the Newcastle players that have played for England and maybe some listeners that you've forgotten about. So we'll start off with the goalkeeper position, which looks to be easy from what I can see on my screen here. We had to pick a goalkeeper. There was only really one option, apart from a fellow by the name of Matt Kingsley, who made 1 cap for England in 1901. And I was on the pints that day, so I can't really remember how he did. So there's a unanimous vote for Nick Pope as our goalkeeper, lads. And the one question I want to ask Alan while Chriso's sipping his Guinness. Do you think Nick Pope will ever make it back into this England team now, or do you think the ship has sailed?
The ship has sailed. He will be replaced at Newcastle soon. I think he may become our number 2, or eventually he might do that for a year and then ship off. But I can't see him. He's 32, 33 now. Like he's not getting younger. There's lads coming through. It's all over for him, unfortunately, I think.
Interesting. Okay. I mean, you'd hope not. I think he still has a run of very good form in him, but his kicking is just so blatantly letting him down. It's not even discreet. It's just so noticeable at this point.
It's Pinocchio legs. I said it a couple of podcasts before. He's got wooden legs. If the ball comes to him, it looks like A, he's panicking. B, he just, it's like as if he goes colorblind. He doesn't know who our players are, and he goes whack anywhere away from him. And there's no subtlety or style in any way. Great shot stopper. Great goalkeeper, seemingly a very nice fella. Hooray, everyone loves that. But he cannot kick a football, and he shouldn't be a modern-day goalkeeper in Newcastle United going forward.
Alan, that means going to put him on
Kelleher.
Christian's going to put Pope on penalties next.
Yeah.
Kelleher. We're going to go for Kelleher.
No.
Yes.
No.
Oh.
Hey.
He's too expensive for what he is. He's a very, very, very good goalkeeper. They want 35 million for him. Go out and get Trafford for 20 million. He is the exact same goalkeeper.
We need to be very careful with the spending as well. But again, we'll save that for the transfer podcast. Right. We're going to go right back, lads. We'll go around the room here then. I'm going to ask you to name your right back of choice. And Chriso, you can go first.
Tino.
You're going with Tino. Nice. Okay. Alan?
Is that one cap?
You have to go with Trips, unfortunately. Tino will be the future, but Trips is the present, unfortunately.
Yeah, I've gone with Trippier as well, actually. So that's 2-1, Chriso. I think, as you said, like what Tino can bring and what he hopefully will bring is unbelievable. The other choices really here, I think the main one, lads, would have been Warren Barton. Now, he only made two or three kind of caps for England. We did have him on the podcast way back a couple of weeks after we started. And we know he made his debut against Ireland in that famously abandoned game. But obviously, kind of a lack of caps there. Trippier, I think, he's played right back, left back. He's captained England. He's done well in tournaments. I think he's probably a shoe-in for that. So, okay, we've got Trippier and right back. Left back seems to be unanimous here, lads. I can see 3 votes for Lewis Hall already. No recency bias here whatsoever. No. That said, the only other real competition at left back in the modern era, which is anything on after 1990, would be Barry Venison, who played for England, as far as I can see, kind of twice, I think it was. So probably Lewis Hall is edging this one.
Yeah.
At left back. Okay. We're flying through this. Now, Alan, I can see you went with one centre back, and Chriso looks to be the same.
Yeah.
There is a centre back that all 3 of us have. I did have a second one in my lineup. So it seems like we're all unanimous on Jonathan Woodgate. So, Alan, I want to ask you about Jonathan Woodgate, because this is a really interesting player when you talk about, there's no doubt how good Woodgate was.
Yeah.
And at his best for Newcastle, he was fantastic. but we just didn't see. I feel like we just didn't see enough of him, and even England fans probably wouldn't have seen enough of him.
No.
But he's made one cap for England, and he's unanimously in our all-time 11 of Newcastle players to play for England.
If that man was fit, you'd be talking about him in the same bracket as John Terry's, as like that's the caliber of defender he was. He just wasn't fit. He's the same as kind of Ledley King. If he was fit, he'd be world class. He just wasn't fit. That's the
like himself, really. He was, though. I mean, yeah, he was unbelievable. And look, there's a reason why Real Madrid suddenly popped out and up out of nowhere, hoping that he would stay fit for them. They could see the player that was in there. And, you know, as I said, when he was good for us, he was great. Similarly enough as well, Chris, like with the centre-back position, there wasn't a whole lot of competition. We haven't had a whole lot of centre-backs in the England team. The other one I had in my kind of with a back four was Steve Howie. I really liked Steve Howie at Newcastle. He was so solid, so consistent. He was part of that wonderful time, that wonderful era. He was in the Euro 96 England team that did really well, even though he didn't really feature much. 4 caps in total. But outside of those two, there isn't a whole lot of competition. You have to go way back to kind of, God, from what I can see, like the 20s, 30s was the last time you had a proper centre-back from Newcastle playing for England. So
we're not
Steve Howie, Chris,
to be honest.
Steve Howie was not only an excellent defender, he's an all-round, generally very nice person with great stories. Because any the times I've seen him speaking on a podcast or anything else, he's got cracking stories. Good lad. Keegan trusted him with his bloody career, his bloody managerial career, put him in there. And he played well for England, if I'm not mistaken. I think every time he played quite well. So it is a bit unfortunate. To be honest, I might change mine, if that's all right. I might change mine to Steve Howie, so that we could have a bit of it. Because now that I'm thinking about it, Jonathan Woodgate, played a couple of good games for us. Then he crocked himself at Real Madrid. He's more of a Leeds man than a Newcastle man. Steve Howie's a real Newcastle man, so I'm gonna change it to Howie right now, live on air. Steve
Interesting.
Howie.
Okay, so he might stay in there if we do go with that back four. Then we'll see how it progresses. And yeah, look, he was competing with the likes of Tony Adams at the time, maybe Gareth Southgate, even a little bit of Sol Campbell probably in his early days. So, you know, they were serious defenders to try and get ahead of. Okay, we're now moving into midfield, and what we'll do is we'll start in the center of midfield, because it looks like we've all kind of, most of us have 2 kind of midfielders in there. Alan might have 3. I'm kind of keeping an eye on it.
I've gone 3-5-2.
Okay, Alan, call out your center midfield combination then, and we'll each of us do that, and we'll see if we go with a 2 or 3.
I went with Rob Lee, David Batty, Scott Parker.
Scott Parker, okay, that's one I wasn't expecting too much, even though I was a big Scott Parker fan when he was with us, and
I just loved him. He is the last man to lift a trophy/certificate for Newcastle United.
Certificate. Did he do? What was he doing? Was he doing life saving down at the local swimming pool, or what happened?
The Inter Toto Cup. Do you not remember that?
I
remember we won that.
Yeah. Were we not 3 teams to win that, or was that when it was changed? Remember they used to have 3 winners?
Yeah, we won something, but we got a certificate, and it was the funniest looking thing in the world. It just literally said Newcastle United, and I'm like, dreadful.
Alan, you've got one of them you've probably got one of them on the wall.
You do.
Okay, so you've gone with Rob Lee, David Batty, and Scott Parker. I also have Rob Lee and David Batty. So, Krisho, tell us yours, and we'll see where we're lining up.
I have, because, I won't go into the strikers, but I liked where Beardsley played as kind of a roaming 10. I know he maybe didn't do that for England, so I'm going to go with 3, but it's Lee, Batty, and Beardsley.
I see. Okay. So this is interesting. Now we all have Lee and Batty, so they have to go straight in, at least as a 2, whether it's a double pivot or whatever you want to call it. So Rob Lee and David Batty are in. Rob Lee is also an interesting one. I mean, he played 21 times for England, which is probably more than I would have expected, because I don't remember him really being in any of these Euro 96 or World Cup 98 kind of squads, but he's obviously made a lot of appearances. Maybe it was friendlies or maybe it was qualifiers and so on. That's an interesting one. And David Batty, we all remember David Batty. You wouldn't have him on penalties either. But great for Newcastle and England. So, okay, put a pin in that then.
Right.
I think we'll come back to Beardsley. I want to have a chat about kind of the wide players, because that's where I had Beardsley as one of my wide players. I had Beardsley on the right. Beardsley could play anywhere. Like you could tell him, he probably did play in goals. I had Beardsley on the right and I had Gordon on the left. So I want to ask you lads, did you have kind of wide players? How you were looking at it, or how are you looking at the options that are there?
I went with Kieran Dyer on the right and Anthony Gordon on the left. I loved Dyer when he played for us. I just thought he was cracking. He was perennially injured now again, but I just absolutely loved him whenever he played for us. He was a great player.
32 England caps.
Yeah.
32. That's, I mean,
Mental.
that was a serious amount of caps for someone who was injured a lot. I mean, I'm almost like, did he play 32 times for us? Definitely not in a season, but
I'm the same.
Okay, Dyer's
I'm
an
the same.
interesting one. Appreciate.
Yeah, I'm the same. Dyer and Gordon. I was gonna go with Andros Townsend because I loved his time at Newcastle. I wish we would have signed him properly, but we didn't. But in terms of no, it has to be Dyer and Gordon. Dyer was Jinky McGee. He was brilliant, and then Gordon is a superstar. Let's just be honest. Gordon's a superstar, and he's going to be one. So those two on the wings, but I can see why you'd put Beardsley there as well on the left wing.
Well, this is going to make it interesting. So we have question marks over the wings, the Peter Beardsley role. If you were to have Dyer and Gordon and Beardsley and Batty and Lee, we've only got room for one striker. Now I'm looking at our little hidden sheet here in the background. We do, of course, all have one Alan Shearer on the list, but both myself and Alan have another striker there, Alan, I believe. Do you want to give the name?
Sir Les Ferdinand. What a player.
Sir Les Ferdinand. Wowza. And Krisher, you've got another name here as well.
Yeah, I've gone for Jackie Milburn because if we're talking about fantasy here, I think that it would be absolutely wonderful for Shearer to play with his hero. And I'd love to see them play. Even if you could do it in a video game or something, the way they used to do. Do they still do that in FIFA, Al? But in PES, they used to do the old icons and stuff, Maradona and all this, that, and the other. I'm thinking, God, if you could only get Jackie Milburn and Shearer up front just to see how it would go. Because the thing is, the only problem is Shearer and Ferdinand complement each other, even though they were both kind of number 9s. I'm not sure if Jackie Milburn and Shearer would complement each other as well. They're both kind of the exact same player. Yeah, goal guys. But yes, Jackie Milburn Milburn for the old boys. Do you know what I mean? I think Jackie Milburn and Shearer up front would be savage altogether.
Interesting. Okay, so that's given us. Okay, we have extra names here, lads. We have work to do, and we're going to have to try and come to consensus. So, okay, in order to get this right, are we 3 at the back or 4 at the back? Because that then dictates what happens further up the field. And looking at the names on the sheet, the question is: are we 4 at the back with Woodgate and Howie? Or are we 3 at the back with only one of them? Because Trippier is locked in and Lewis Hall is now locked in. Or maybe Hall isn't locked in. Interesting. Alan, you're going for 3 at the back.
I let us have the 4-4-2 if he's really one. Based off that, the old film, what was his name? England manager, 4-4-2.
Mike Bassett.
Bassett, England manager, that's the one.
If you had Pope, Trippier, Hall, Woodgate, Howie, Gordon, Dyer, Lee, Batty, Shearer, Ferdinand, that doesn't sound too bad for 4-4-2, does it?
You've lost a Peter Beardsley on your travels there.
We have lost a Peter Beardsley. I'm not happy about it, but I don't know where to put him. Or maybe replace Gordon with Beardsley.
I'd replace Dyer with Beardsley if you're replacing anyone with Beardsley.
Okay.
Interesting. The only other way I'd go with it, lads, just for the hell of it, and because of time and recency bias, I might drop Lewis Hall out of that, and I'd go Trippier, Woodgate, and Howie as a back 3. I think Trippier, in his later years, in his Newcastle years, could easily slot in there, do a job. And then what are we looking at? I mean, then you're maybe looking at Dyer playing like a wing back role, so he might be able to cover that kind of space. And then you've got Lee and Batty as the double kind of pivot, Gordon on the left. No, we're still got too many numbers. I was thinking Beardsley then as a 10, but then you only got one.
Beardsley then Shearer.
3-5-2 work. Beardsley 3-5-2. Does that work numbers wise? It does.
Yeah. You have to take Dyer out if you want Beardsley in that team.
I see what you're doing. Okay. So final call on this, and I want to tell you this is where I think we're getting at. Are we looking at Pope and goal, Trippier, Howie, and Woodgate as a back 3? You've got Beardsley on the right, Gordon on the left, Lee and Batty in the middle,
Yeah.
and then Shearer and Ferdinand up front. That's only 10 players.
That's 10 players. So yeah, you're missing a player.
So Beardsley goes in behind Shearer and Ferdinand. Oh no, Beardsley's on the right side.
Does that allow for Kieran Dyer, or are we going to go with the back four and have Lewis Hall?
I'll put Dyer in. Yeah, Dyer. Yeah. Okay, good.
Dyer as a wing back. That's a brave move. Wasn't exactly defensively prowess.
Crack. I mean, like Trippier is there enough to cover him. Okay, Dyer is probably the one I wouldn't have expected, but I'm not against it because when Dyer, like again, I remember when he signed Dyer, I was absolutely buzzing, and you know, like as we always say, when he was good, he was great. So Trippier, how we would get Dyer and Gordon on the wings, Lee and Batty in the middle with Beardsley ahead, and Shearer and Ferdinand up front. That's not a bad team.
Not a bad team at all.
That's a good team.
I think that team would beat Ireland, a 10-man Ireland 5-0 in the second half as well.
Yeah, that's not hard.
That's the bar.
Yeah,
interesting exercise. Listeners, let us know your own thoughts. You can actually look this up. There is a website. I can't remember. It's England Stats or something. But if you just Google it, Newcastle players to play for England. Other options we could have chosen. We didn't. Surprisingly, we didn't go with Callum Wilson. We didn't go with Andy Carroll. We didn't go with Nicky Butt. Interesting one. Didn't go with the likes of Alan Smith, Michael Owen,
Judas.
Enough said there. The less said about that, the better. But some random interesting names, and I'm amazed Chriso managed to bring Andros Townsend into it. But he did, and that's what Chriso does.
Hey, controversial, guys. Controversial. Or we didn't mention Super Mac, Malcolm McDonald.
Super Mac. I mean, yeah. Wow. I think the time is obviously against them with us being such young
energetic,
gentlemen, such
vibrant.
Yeah. Moving swiftly on. We'll stop looking back and we can start looking forward, lads. Premier League is back. Newcastle United are back. We have now. I'm not sure if I'm right on this, and I probably should have checked. I feel like this is the first Monday game we've had either this season or in quite a while, but I may be wrong.
This season, yes.
This season, yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
First Monday meet up in the Bleaker. That's the kind of barometer, isn't it, Ali?
Yeah, actually, you're right because I haven't been there on a Monday yet this season. Sorry. Yeah.
Someone better warn work depending on how that game goes. Tuesday morning might be a bit quiet and ropey. Because normally, obviously, we're always on like early Saturday for the TV, late Saturday for the TV, or Sunday at 4:00. So yeah, interesting. I don't know how it changes things, but the one thing I'm thinking is, we as we've just mentioned, we had 6 players playing in the international break. The bigger delay, the bigger break, the better. I think Eddie Howe he won't mind that at all, really. We'll talk about West Ham, Chriso.
Yeah,
I'm going to give you some facts about West Ham just to start. You're controversial and you like to bring things down. I'm bringing us all the way back up, and I'm just not having it anymore.
Right.
We have quite a good record against West Ham. We're unbeaten in the last 5 against West Ham, both home and away. We've won 2 and drawn 3. The last defeat was August 2021, when we were maybe not as good as we are now, and they were probably a lot better than they are now. Let's be fair. So from a records point of view, we've got a pretty decent record. We'll remember we beat them 4-3 in March of this year. It was the Harvey Barnes goal that we all love and remember. That was a serious turnaround of events. And there was a big 5-1 victory as well back in April 23. I think we might remember that too. And the last time, as I said, they beat us 4-2 in August 2021. Can anyone guess who scored in that game? Alan, I'll look at you because I just don't have any faith in Chriso for this one.
Thank you. What?
4-2 loss. Wilson, because he always scores against him. 21.
21.
What?
Trippier.
Wasn't
Trippier?
Go on, Alan.
Was it Miggy?
No, it was the other Murphy.
Murphy, yeah.
Yes, indeed. Pretty depressing that we went and lost 4-2 somehow against West Ham. And that was at home as well. But as I said, I think it's fair to say we're in much better shape now than we were back then. And they're definitely not. They're in pretty bad form in the league. I was actually surprised to see that they're 14th. I don't know. This Lopetegui is just a Spanish David Moyes, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah,
there's very little imagination in this team. So, Christian, I'm going to come to you first, I suppose. What's kind of your feeling on Newcastle and West Ham? Do you think it's going to be a cakewalk?
Yeah, okay. This nothing to worry about whatsoever. 3-0. 3-0. Yeah, 4-0 actually, maybe a late goal just at the end for Callum Wilson, just for a bit of a laugh. So 4-0 to Newcastle, and it'll be 3-0 by halftime. There's nothing to worry about here at all. They're poor, they're disjointed, they're badly coached, and they have a couple of stars in their team, but they're not superstars. They're just like Premier League stars. Give me a break. We've got the real. This is where we can kick on again now and pummel somebody in 14th and push ourselves up and get into 3rd by Monday night. So yeah, this is where I'm seeing it. 3-4-0 to Newcastle.
Fair,
Yeah,
fair.
it's hard not to feel that way. And Krisha, you mentioned like the manager gets blamed, but I think in this case, this manager doesn't seem to have any imagination for what he's doing with this squad. The one thing I'll say, and it might be even beyond the manager, is West Ham have a fundamental problem with signing and using strikers, right? To the point where Michail Antonio is the only striker that has survived, like multiple managers and just hung around long enough. They've seemed to just always sign the wrong striker, and for some reason it doesn't work. But if you look at some of them, like Sebastian Haller was an example. He was signed, big money, didn't work out, banged at Ajax, banged at Dortmund, had his own health issues, but like they just couldn't get a tune out of him. Scamacca, similar story, big money, went back to Italy, banged again for Atalanta, and then he was in the Italy team. Then they've obviously this season they've signed Nicholas Fulkrug, who's an old-fashioned kind of a number 9, and you'd think, okay, maybe that approach will work. He hasn't really taken off, and now he's injured. So they have a striker problem. So their only danger man is their top scorer with 3 goals, Jared Bowen.
Yeah,
and as we've seen in the past, if you nullify the main threat, and I think we did this pretty well at Forest as well. If you can kind of target the main threat, which in this case is Jared Bowen, I just don't have the big concerns for them. I'm just not afraid of them. I think that we have every reason to be confident, and we should be walking away with what I think would be a 3-0 win. Alan.
Yeah.
Sorry, Krisha.
No, it's just going to say in a 100-meter sprint, both myself and Alan, after 10 points, would catch up with that Fulkrug guy. No problem. He's super slow, this guy. Honestly, I saw a clip a couple of weeks ago where a defender was miles behind him, and he caught up with him. I mean, this guy, he's not old, right? Is he old? No, is he?
31, 32.
Early 30s.
Early 30s? Yeah.
He's younger than most of us here.
Yeah. Sorry. Anyway, Al. Sorry. You head
there. West Ham, I can see us winning. Yes, 100%. We do need to turn up, because all the talk over this international break is that Lopetegui is getting sacked. So are they going to go out and pull their performance out? Now, the only thing is, Kudus is banned. He got like a 7-game ban or a 5-game ban, which is mental. And Alvarez is out as well, which are 2 big players for them. Yeah, we should really have enough to be beating West Ham. And as we keep saying, if you want to get into Europe, you have to be beating teams like this at home. And that's the be all or end all. We want to be in Europe. We have to be beating sides like this.
Yeah.
I do think we'll win, and I'm going to go, I did, 3-0 as well.
Yeah.
Confident, but wary.
Sure. And I think, Alan, it's not just you have to beat teams like this at home. I think we need to be making statements.
Yes.
To really, because it's not only telling everyone what our intentions are, but it's also giving the players that, increased confidence, increased belief, that feeling of scoring and winning by, a good margin as well. So, okay, unanimously, we all think that Newcastle are going to go and beat West Ham comfortably at home. If anybody out there likes a bet, gamble responsibly, etc. At West Ham, I've had 3 red cards in the last 7 games. Now, 2 of them were Alvarez, as Alan mentioned, he's suspended, and 1 was Kudus. But again, we mentioned it already. You can just see somebody taking down a Gordon or doing something silly. So yeah, it might be worth looking at. But as we always said, gamble responsibly. Speaking of gambling, shall we take a gamble that Chris Show still retains any Newcastle United knowledge whatsoever, Alan?
I'm sure we'll give it a whack.
I thought I was going to be the quiz master guy. Why you always put me in this position? Just pass me over the quiz ball and I'll do it. Hooray.
Look, while you're off spending all the Irish Mag's budget on your holidays in Paris, we have to return the favor when you come back to the podcast, and you can go and do a quiz for next week if you're still standing after this one, because it is the return of the Irish Magstermind quiz. Now, lads, I'm hoping this one will challenge you, to be honest, especially Alan.
Yeah.
But the theme is very straightforward. Very, very straightforward team. So since the Premier League started, as we always say, in that 92-93 season, there have been 19 players who have played for both Newcastle and West Ham, who are playing, as we said, next Monday. I will be impressed if you can give me 15 of the 19 players that have played for both Newcastle and West Ham. And I'll just go from one to the other. We'll alternate between you, and then sure you can just start shouting and working together and so on. So Chris, I'm going to let you... 19 players have played for both clubs in any shape or form, loans or as a permanent player.
Yeah.
So Chris, I'm going to come to you first. Shout me a player who's played for both Newcastle United and West Ham United.
Are you ready?
Always.
I like that.
Yeah. Kevin Nolan.
I like that.
Kevin Nolan is correct. Has played for both Newcastle and West Ham. Alan.
Now, I don't know if this lad has actually played a competitive game for Newcastle yet. Harrison Ashby.
Oh, he was signing from West Ham.
Yeah.
Harrison Ashby is on my list.
Very good.
And the list I've pulled, it does say he's played twice. I can't even remember the games that he's apparently played twice.
No.
Maybe they're friendlies, but it does say
he played one of the cup games.
Potentially.
I think he might play one of the cup games, yeah.
So he does make the list.
Oh.
And that's correct. Chris Shaw.
A man making a name for himself in Division 4 in France. Big Andy Carroll.
Andy Carroll is, of course, correct. He scored 32 goals for Newcastle and 34 for West Ham, apparently. So there's that. Alan, back to you.
Lee Bowyer.
Lee Bowyer is correct. Played for Newcastle between 03 and 05, and West Ham, he was up to 0. I think he had 2 spells at West Ham, if I'm not mistaken.
We sold him to West Ham, didn't we?
Yeah, and I think he was there for that too. Right, 2-2.
You're gonna love this, right? You're gonna love this because Al remembers him. Paul, I'm hoping you remember him. I remember him, and he wasn't great, but he tried. Marlon Harewood.
Oh, Marlon Harewood is a great shout. He did play for Newcastle in 2009, and he played for West Ham between 03 and 06. 3-2 to Chris Shaw. Back to Alan.
I think he played for West Ham. I think we might have signed him from West Ham. Shaka Hislop.
Shaka Hislop.
Oh,
goalkeeper.
Yeah.
Is correct. 57 caps for Newcastle 95 to 97, and then 125 for West Ham between 98 and 05. Great shot.
I didn't know he played that much for them. Yeah.
Back to Chris Shaw.
The Wales manager. Craig Bellamy.
Show. Yeah. Hell's bells.
Gregory Bellamy is correct.
And well done.
111 times for Newcastle.
Well done to Wales getting promoted to the top tier of the Nations League. Well done, Wales.
No, we don't give a shit. We're jealous. Okay. Alan, we go back to you. It's 4-3.
I'm done.
I'm going to go with the man who scored the greatest ever goal for Newcastle United.
Oh, my God.
Mo Diame.
Mo Diame is a great shout because it is correct. Oh, yes, yeah. I remember that goal. That is indeed correct. Played 103 times for Newcastle between 16 and 18, but played 72 times for West Ham before that between 2012 and 2014. 4-4 on the board, Chris Shaw.
It's going to put Al under pressure.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm kind of... Yeah. I'm thinking of kind of players who played for us that are from London and stuff, and they probably would have went home and either played for Fulham or West Ham or somebody. And I'm gonna say it's either one or the other, but it's either Rob Lee or...
Stop right there. Rob Lee is correct. Yes, indeed. Obviously, as we know, played 324 times for Newcastle up to 2001, and then had a season in West Ham in 2003. Great shout. Alan, 5-4.
Striker we signed from West Ham, I think. Demba Ba.
Demba Ba is a good shout because it's correct. And you're right, we did sign him from West Ham in the year 2011. And West Ham for the year before that. 5-5, boys. Chris Show, do you have any more left?
No.
Who was the other option?
Well, the other person I was going to say, Scott Parker. He played for Fulham, I think, but he might have played for West Ham as well. I don't know. Or did we?
He might have played for West Ham between the year 2007 and 2011 after he played a season at Newcastle. Sorry, 2 seasons at Newcastle. So you were correct, Chris Show. Scott Parker. That's your point. 6-5, Alan.
I'm done.
Now, I can't remember his first name, but it's the centre.
I know where he's going with this.
Fai. It's either Abdullahi or Amadou. I honestly can't remember his first name. Fai, the centre half. Faye. I think we signed him from West Ham.
If he doesn't know his first name, it can't count. That's it.
Wowza. You want to take a guess, Alan?
I think it's not Amadou. It's Abdoulaye or something like that. I honestly can't remember.
I'm going to give it to you. Abdoulaye Faye. Abdoulaye Faye is correct.
He's going to give it to him. I can't believe it.
I have to give it to him because it is correct. Abdoulaye Faye, 22 games in 2007 for Newcastle, 29 games for West Ham in 2011, actually afterwards.
I thought we signed him from that.
Negative. We are on 6-6, and there is still 7 players in total to go. You might even get the 19, lads.
No.
I think Cernicek played for West Ham at the end of his career.
I think so too, yeah.
Interesting.
So, does that mean we get a point each if I also think so?
I think he obviously went back to like Banik Ostravia or whoever he went to, but I think he ended up back in the Prem after, or maybe it was even when they were in the Championship.
I can tell you, Pavel Cernicek played for Newcastle between 1992 and 2006, and he played 3 times for West Ham in the year 2003. Great shout. I'm going to give that to Alan because he said it first, even though it wasn't his turn. But I'm nice like that. Good shout, though. And obviously, RIP to Pavel Cernicek. Chris Show, over to you then.
RIP to Krisho, because I don't know that I don't have any I don't have any other dudes. I'm just give me West Ham.
What I can tell you is there's 2 players remaining on this list that we mentioned in an earlier segment on this podcast today.
Okay. Steve Howie?
Incorrect.
Ice. Balls.
Alan, back to you.
2 players.
Oh.
Dyer. Did Dyer go to West Ham?
Depends if that's your guess.
Dyer? I don't remember him playing for West Ham, but Kieran Dyer.
Kieran Dyer obviously played for Newcastle, yes, in 1999 to 2006, and played 30 games for West Ham between 2007 and 2010, believe it or not.
What?
Spread out, I would imagine. Yeah, Kieran Dyer is correct.
Do not remember that.
They were well spread out, I'd say. Krisho, any inspiration since?
Andros Townsend.
Andreas Townsend is incorrect.
Trying to think, who else did we say?
Yeah,
Right. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start throwing you some clues, lads.
Okay.
Big Les?
Big Les is correct.
Yes.
No way.
West Ham. 14 games for West Ham in 2002, believe it or not. That is correct. Now, there is 2 left backs on this list. One is far more well known than the other. They're both English. One is a left back that played for England and had a famous moment for England, but it wasn't too positive, of a penalty nature.
Stuart Pearce. Boom.
Stuart Pearce is correct. Great show, Chris Show. Now, I'll come back to the other left back last because you'd do well to get that one. We've 2 other players then. One is a South American player. He is a South American player who recently had an unsuccessful management gig.
Yeah. Did we not say Nobby?
Who?
I didn't hear you say Nobby.
Nobby Solano.
Nobby Solano. I don't remember you saying it, lads. Did you say it?
I don't know.
I didn't.
Oh,
Listeners are shouting, they didn't fucking say it.
No, I definitely.
was said.
But it is correct. He played 23 times for West Ham in 2007.
Did he?
So Solano is correct.
Hmm.
Now we go to two players left on the list. One is a striker from the Kevin Keegan era. Would be largely considered to be more of a backup striker.
Jesus.
And Chriso, this is definitely up your street.
David Kelly.
Little bit later.
Okay, a little later. Did he have curly black hair?
A little bit. Does that help you?
It's like, didn't they all have curly black hair?
I can tell you he has an absolutely glorious first name.
Oh,
Paul Goddard.
No.
Paul Goddard, who played for Newcastle and played for West Ham.
He did not. Paul Kitson is correct. Paul Kitson is the right answer.
Thank you.
This is 92, 93 onwards, my friend. From the Premier League era only.
Screw you guys, because Paul Goddard did play for West Ham and he did play for Newcastle. And people, that are older would remember that. So I win. So thanks.
We're stick to the rules here, Chris Show. But you can reward yourself with another can after we finish recording. That's my.
I've got no more cans left.
I've
only got one can.
Okay, that's just one last player.
Paul Kitson was so great. He was so good.
I knew you'd love him. I knew Krisha was a fan. Krisha loves Paul Kitson and Scott Sellers more than he loves Jeff Hendrick, and that's saying something.
That is true. That is very true. There's one more player.
One more player. You did get 15 out of 19, which I challenge you to, but you're nearly on the 19. The last player on this list was a left back. Now, in terms of clues, I do know who we signed him from, and that club was Sheffield United, and I haven't even had to look that up. I'm fairly sure it's true. And he's a left back who I can only describe as being English with a relatively Irish surname.
Is it some form of O'Brien?
It is not. It is not an O or a muck.
Okay. Wait, do you know when we have you got a date or a year? Or?
I'll look it up. I'll look it up for you. I was shouting that out of my brain rather than out of the Google. So I can tell you. He signed for us from Sheffield United in the year 2001.
2001.
Bobby Robson signed
times.
2001.
Yes, I would say yes. Quite young when he signed for us.
Well, I was just
I'm thinking back the Premier League sticker era here.
Wow.
And another one that I can't remember his first name. Quinn.
Does that sound like a distinctly Irish surname, Alan?
Yeah, it does sound like a distinctly Irish surname, and that's what gave me the answer. I was like,
I will announce Chris Show as the winner of the quiz if he can guess this Quinn fella's first name.
Alan Quinn.
No.
Tadger Quinn.
Tadger Quinn. Negative. I'm going to put you out of your misery, lads. Wayne Quinn is the correct answer.
Wayne Quinn. Yeah.
Nobody has ever heard of that player, ever.
Little blondie lad, I think he was, wasn't he?
Yeah. He had a lot of promise, but it just never.
It just never worked for him.
Potential, yeah. One appearance for the England B team because that was a thing. But well done, lads. You did get the 15 out of the 19, so we'll give you that. And
happy days.
Chris Show, you live to fight another day. But you're allowed to host the quiz next week.
I will.
And to give you all something to look forward to. Well, on that note, that brings us to the end of episode 51 of the Irish Mags Show. Quick shout out, there'll be a meetup in the Bleaker, as we mentioned, for the West Ham game on Monday evening. Mm-hmm. Alan will be there with bells on because it's nearly Christmas, as always. As usual, we'll be back for more Irish Magnus next week. Check out all our social links that are in the descriptions below. Do all of the liking and all of the commenting and all of the following, and let us know your own England best 11. But until then, we shall just say to you, Hawaii the lads, Slán go fóill. We'll see you all very soon.
Slán good.